you, Judge Rendon. I should have had you gone last, and then we could just be all on that high note. Such a great message. That is exactly why the LULAC councils here, 60, 688, and 673, decided to focus this year on existing college students because of those statistics. We're very, very happy about the number of Hispanics or Latino students enrolled, but we want you to finish and graduate and go on and get master's degrees and PhDs. We don't want you to stop, right? We want you to keep going. And then remember everyone who helped you, and then bring them forward, bring everyone else forward with you. So thank you, that's exactly what we wanted to hear, thank you. So we're gonna get into the fun part now, the actual scholarships. The checks, I get to give you checks. I love spending money when it's not mine, so we're gonna do checks. Okay. But we're gonna talk about these scholarships. So the first one, Gabriella, are you here, Gabriella? Yes, okay. So we have, the first scholarship is the Leonel Castillo Scholarship. And we actually have some of Mr. Castillo's family in the audience. So if you please, probably, it's not a new name to you. Leonel J. Castillo was born in 1939 in Victoria, Texas, and he was raised in Galveston. He received a BA degree cum laude in English in 1961 from St. Mary's and went on to get a Master of Social Work and Community Organization from the University of Pittsburgh. He served in the Peace Corps. He was secretary for he was my page. He was secretary for the Political Association of Spanish-Speaking Organizations, treasurer for the Democratic Party of Texas, and member of the Southern Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Castillo was the first paid director for SARE, so that nonprofit that I mentioned, Jobs for Progress, Inc., and he was a director of Catholic Council on Community Relations. He co-founded the Houston International University, or also known as the University Without Walls, and he served as its president. He was the first Hispanic to be elected to city office as city controller in Houston in 1971, and he ran for mayor in 1979. And if I was around, no, I was around then, I would have voted for him, but I wasn't old enough. But still. In 1977, he was appointed Commissioner of the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service by President Jimmy Carter. So that group is now called, that organization is now called the U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, but he was appointed by Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, so that is pretty amazing. And I'll tell you, I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Castillo when I was very young, in my 20s. I was an intern at, a student at U of H, an intern at City Hall, and he was working there, and I met him, and he was very nice, very welcoming, and I'll always remember that. So we want to recognize, in honor of Mr. Leonel Castillo, Gabriella Hines, who is a student at University of Houston downtown, and we were very impressed with her application and especially her essays. She, again, is a student here at UHD, yes, and we are awarding her $1,000 today. Oh.
I want to get the family down.
Would you like to come and? We can do it outside. Thank you. If you don't mind, or if you wouldn't mind, if you will come and get a picture now with the family. Sure. Thank you.
Come on, Dad.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Come to them. We'll come to them.
Gabriel.
So as we get more pictures, it's kind of like the wedding. You think you're out, but you're not really. It's got all the pictures, right? So we're going to move on and move to the next scholarship. This one's near and dear to my heart. It's named after my grandparents. So it's called the Ruth and Carlos Contreras Scholarship. A little bit about these individuals. So Carlos Contreras was born in August of 1926 in Houston. He was drafted immediately after graduating from Sam Houston High School at the age of 18. He served in World War II in Germany, and he achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant. He was honorably discharged in 1946, and he married Ruth Aghia in 1949, and he went to U of H on the GI Bill. He graduated with a BS in mechanical engineering in 1955 while supporting a family of 8. He actually has a family in here. A little bit about Ruth. Ruth was born in Houston in February 1926. She was a dedicated homemaker and an advocate for education and civil rights for women and Latinos. She was gifted in the arts and was a constant inspiration to her children to succeed in wherever their passion led them. Both Ruth and Carlos always stressed the significance of obtaining a secondary education to their sons, daughters, and even grandchildren. Carlos reminded his family often of his favorite quote, which is right behind me. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So to remember Ruth and Carlos, the family members, if you will please stand, they're here. David Contreras. I'm his favorite granddaughter. And so to remember them, we are happy to present Natalia Rialdo with a $500 scholarship. She attends the University of Houston downtown here. So Natalia. I messed that up. I'm used to it. I can't say Contreras. Thank you.
Thank you.
This one's complicated.
It's complicated. I'm going to do a selfie in there. I'll go to selfies. Dad. Dad.
Ready? 1,
2. Next, we have another name you may be familiar with. If you've studied civil rights, if you've been involved in LULAC, that is the John J. Herrera Scholarship. John James Herrera was born in April of 1910. He was an American attorney, activist, and leader in the Mexican-American Civil Rights Movement. He was born in Louisiana, and he joined LULAC in 1933. He began his law practice in Houston in 1943, and he was involved in the movement to end employment discrimination during World War II. There was employment discrimination against Mexican Americans in Houston shipyards. In 1948, he joined the legal team that brought the school discrimination case of Minerva Delgado against the Bastrop Independent School District to Texas Supreme Court. The ruling declared educational segregation of Mexican American students illegal in Texas. And in 1954, he authored the briefs for the case of Hernandez versus Texas that argued that the exclusion of Mexican American jurors was unconstitutional. The case reached the Supreme Court, which decided in Hernandez's favor. He served as president of LULAC from 1952 to 1953, and he continued to serve the organization throughout the 70s and 80s. He introduced JFK at that event we spoke of earlier, a little over 50 years ago when he came to Houston. And so we'd like to remember John J. Herrera. None of his family's here, I believe, correct? No family's here, but we want to remember him and recognize Miss Marimad Sanchez. She is a student at UHD, and so we're very happy to present her with this $500 check. Thank you. Next, we have the Genie and John Allemand Scholarship, and they are in the room here. So this is the second time we've had this scholarship. John is a founder of the Latino Learning Center. He was born in Waco in June of 1940, and he graduated from La Vega High School and went on to Sam Houston State University and graduated with a BS in May of 1963. He served in the military as a second lieutenant and captain from 1963 to 1968 in Vietnam and was stationed in the Philippine Islands. He served as a courier officer traveling between Southeast Asia and Washington, D.C., and all military installations in between. Allemand married Eugenia Genie Gonzalez in 1965 and worked 35 years as an interviewer, a counselor, veterans representative, and minority group representative at the Texas Employment Commission. His community work involves LULAC for over 30 years, AGIF for 27 years, Houston Vista Apartments for the elderly, and the John Goldberg Apartments for the elderly. Jeannie received her bachelor's from the University of Houston and has worked in accounting for over 40 years. She also serves the community through her work at the Latino Learning Center, LULAC, American GI Forum, and many other organizations. We're very proud to have both of the Allemands in our council, 688. They provide us much guidance and keep us in line often, so thank you for that. We would like to recognize Nelva Quintero Velasco. She is a student at HCC, and she is getting the Genie and John Allemand Scholarship. Sorry to make you nervous, Mariah, but I didn't forget about you. This is another one dear to my heart. So Mariah is receiving today the Maria and Ernest Aghia Scholarship, and this is not the first time we've offered this either. A little bit about who the scholarship, what you're getting today. Ernest Aghia was born in November 1919 in Lockhart, Texas. He went to Sam Houston High School during the same time that Lyndon B. Johnson was a debate teacher there. He was drafted in the military in 1941 and he was sent to Europe where he was part of the invasion of Europe at Normandy in France on June 11, 1944. He achieved the rank of Staff Sergeant and received the Bronze Star for his heroic efforts. He remained committed to preserving the memories of World War II and veterans issues, staying active in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion. He joined LULAC in 1947, and he was on the front lines of the Civil Rights Movement, pioneering the movement of the Latino integration in the Houston area after the war. Maria Martinez Aghia worked as an assistant to the nurses and nuns at St. Joseph's Hospital. At the same time, attended Macy's School of Business in Houston. Both having an extremely difficult childhood, Maria and Ernest found love and respect for each other and married on November 1st, 1947. Years later, Ernest and Maria decided to go back to school and earn their GED to set an example to their 4 children on the importance of education. Maria and Ernest instilled in each of their children the importance of obtaining an education beyond high school. They were of the opinion that education was the one thing that could not be taken from a person. I can actually hear him say that. Although Maria is a petite woman, and she is tiny, she remains a very strong woman in light of recently losing her husband after 67 years. She devoted her life to her husband and her children and loved a variety of music. The cliche that behind every successful great woman, behind every successful great man is a wonderful woman is applicable for Ernest and Maria Aghia. So to recognize them, we are to honor them, we are recognizing Miss Mariah Acevedo. She is a student at Lone Star, and we would like to give you this $500 check. And we are very proud to have actually my Uncle Ernest and Aunt Maria's family here in the audience. If you'll please stand. We have one more. Did Tanya make it here?
Tanya's here. Tanya's here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tanya, okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Our final scholarship. This came as a surprise. You're one lucky lady. Yeah. During the scholarship application review, the applicant review process, we recognized that we had funds for only 5 scholarships, but we had 6 applicants deserving scholarship awards. So there was one woman, and you can blame her for my feistiness. We call her Millie, I call her Mom, Miller. Birth name is Amelia, Contreras, right? She was insistent, she's a member of LULAC Council 680, adamant, as my dad's would say, adamant about finding a way to fund this 6 scholarships. So we're a very grassroots organization, our LULAC Council 688. So in order to raise the funds so that we could give this 6 scholarship, it was her idea to sell family sports card collection on Craigslist to raise the money. And we also got a donation, thankfully, from Mrs. Tony Diaz's wife, from Monty and Ramirez law firm. And because of that determination and dedication of my mom and the work that she did along with my dad, David Contreras, we're awarding the 6th scholarship in her honor. So you are receiving the Amelia Contreras Scholarship. And let me tell you a little bit about her. My dad didn't give me notes, but I've got them. So I mentioned that she's a member of Council 688, and she grew up at a time when there was no English as a second language kind of program. None of that existed. She only spoke Spanish. So to learn English, she watched I Love Lucy. She watched a lot of TV. And she has 4 children. I am the second out of those 4. And she taught all of us the importance of giving back, to work in the community service, and the importance of making a commitment. When you make a commitment, you follow through. So I would like to recognize Ms. Tanya Valadez with a $500 scholarship award today. She's like, it's my name. My other daughter.
1, 2.
Oh, let me do it.